Welcome to this tutorial on editing your first project in Final Cut Pro. So we're going to open up Final Cut Pro, and we're also going to pop in our SD card to the back of the machine. So once we do that, it may open up iPhoto and it may auto open your media import screen on Final Cut Pro. So I'm actually going to close this and talk a little bit about what pops up. So this is on this computer. I have Dropbox installed, and I'm going to cancel this. And if iPhoto was to pop up, you could quit that, Command Q, or go into the iPhoto menu and say quit iPhoto. So here we are in Final Cut Pro. Before I import anything, I want to make sure that my library is correct. So this is a library, it might say untitled when you first get started. And I'm actually going to call this untitled because I don't want to make the mistake and use the library that's on the wrong drive. By default, Final Cut Pro starts up with a library that is pointing to the internal drive of the computer. So it will be under your Finder, it will be in your Movies folder, and here are the untitled ones, and this used to be called Pistone. I'm going to make sure I make a new library here, or open a library that I already have. So I already have another library, and that's on my LaCie drive. So I'm going to locate it. I'm going to go to this LaCie, it's a server backup, but your drive would say LaCie, whatever number. And then I'm going to open up my first and my last name and say open. So on this external drive, I have a first and last name library, and then within it, a couple of different events. So I'm going to highlight this and say File, Close Library, so that that's out of the way. And then in here, I'm going to create a new event. So I'm going to go here, File, New Event. And then a new event starts with the date, and it's going to be put into the specific library. So we have the date, and then something specific about the project. So this is fixed shots. I'm going to say OK. So now within our library, we have an event that we can import media to and also create project files. So let's import media now. And now I am going to go to my card. I'm going to click the first clip and look down to the bottom, and it looks like these are all the right clips. So I'm going to select clip number 1 and hit Command A, and that selects all, and I'm going to import selected. Now this window is asking you, what do you want to do with these files? So in the file management video, we went over this in a little bit more detail, but we're going to add to the existing library, the existing event in this library, so that's going to be on the external LaCie drive. We're going to copy files from the card to that library in this event. We don't need to optimize media for any of these projects. That'll create a larger file that's a little bit more higher quality. We're not going to be keywording, and I have this checked off, Analyze for Color. We're going to do this later if you need to, if you messed up on your white balance. Audio, you are going to separate mono and group stereo audio, and you are going to remove silent channels. That's kind of an intelligent thing to do if you have audio recorded to multiple channels within the camera. That might be for later projects, but here we'll just import, and it's going to be importing these files to the LaCie drive. And I just want to show you where they go. So Finder, if I go over to the LaCie drive, in my library, you have to control-click the library to see it, show package contents. We have a fixed shots project, and within this project there will be an original media folder, and here's all the clips that we've just imported. It copied it from the card onto the LaCie drive. So at this point, I could eject the card and we'd be good to go. So I'm going to say, actually I'm going to click here. This is important to look at. It looks like there's not anything going on, so as long as this says 100% and there's nothing transcoding or importing, you can eject your card. So I'm going to hide Final Cut Pro, and now I can grab the card and drag it to the trash, and we're good to go. Pull the card out once it's done. I go back into Final Cut Pro, and all my clips are there. Alright, so at this point, you can do a couple different things. You could start editing right here, or drag it to the timeline and edit down on the timeline. We need to set up a project. So if you don't already have a project file started, this is a project from a different event. So in this event, I'm going to File, New Project, or Command N, and then it's going to go in this, and I'm going to call this today's date, fixed shots, say OK. Alright, so here's my project, and here it's open here. These windows kind of pop open. I'm going to close this window so I have more of a timeline. And then I want to go through and start with a slate. So the very first slate is going to be Extreme Long Shot. Here's extreme long shot. I can see ELS, XLS, and we want to make it so that it's 3 seconds. If you look down here, it's giving you your seconds and frames. So if I was to go across here, I could set an in point with the I key and an out point with the O key at exactly, actually I think we're supposed to be 2 seconds. So here's 2 seconds on the nose, and I'm going to say O, out. Notice I'm hover scrubbing, so I'm just moving my mouse back and forth and it's showing me what I'm doing. Now I can click and drag this selection down to the timeline, or I can use a key command. So if I wanted to put this on the timeline, it's actually clicking this button or the W key. So I'm going to hit W, and now it's on my timeline. So there's my extreme long shot slate, 2 seconds in time. Now the way to do that on the timeline, so if I was to click and get rid of this selection and drag this open and drag it to the timeline, I can go to the edge of the clip, and if you look at the top left, it's giving me like how long it is. So if I wanted this to be exactly 2 seconds, I would drag it, and now it's exactly 2 seconds long. So these are kind of identical clips on the timeline. I'm going to delete one of them. Single click, and then the big delete key. I will get rid of it. Okay, so here's my 2 second slate, and then I want to look for my extreme long shot. So I think we're looking for this one here. And this is a great rule of thirds. You guys did a good job. And then again, if I wanted to do 5 seconds, I could set my in point. So let's do right where we're kind of like lifting our leg up, and I'm going to do I, and then 5 seconds later. So it's not giving me the duration of the shot, it's actually giving me like how long the shot is. So it's 3 seconds in down to 10 seconds. So if I wanted to make sure I got a 5 second duration, I guess I would have to drag this down to the timeline or bring it to the timeline using the W key or clicking this button. What this does is it inserts wherever the time bar is. So if I had the time bar here, it would put it before it. So if I click this button, see how it puts it before it? I'm going to undo that. Command Z is undo. If I put it after it, see how it would put it after it? I'm going to undo that. If I have the time bar here and I wanted to go on the very end of whatever was already kind of on the timeline, that's this icon, and it's the E key. So if you go across, it's Q, W, E, and they're all kind of in the same spot on the keyboard. If I hit E, no matter where the time bar is, it'll append it and put it on the end. So now I have 2 seconds, and then this needs to be 5 seconds. So if I drag this, it's telling me it was at 6 seconds 12 frames. So I want this to be exactly 5 seconds. Right about there. If it won't give you that exact 5 second, just do it like 1 frame under or 1 frame over. So we'll do 1 frame over. Okay, so now I have my slate. If I hit the space bar, 2 seconds, and then I got 5 seconds of a shot. Now on this 5 seconds of a shot, I'm going to put text. So to bring up text, you can click this icon here. That'll give you this kind of sidebar. Going across, you have some effects. If you wanted to import photos, if you wanted to import music from iTunes, if you wanted to put transitions between your clip, if you wanted to put text or titles above your video, if you wanted to add a generator that's like different kind of background or foreground effects, and what's this one here? Themes. So this is kind of like a custom thing if you wanted to set up like an intro to your production or different transitions. These are kind of like more advanced things that you could do. We're going to stick with the basics and just put some text above, and I'm going to use a basic lower third. So I'm going to actually type in the bottom here, third, and then here's basic lower third, and I can drag this and put this on the video layer above, and it's actually not going to make a new layer. This new version of Final Cut Pro connects the clip. So if you were to use this icon, it would connect the clip to this specific clip in the timeline. This is the main timeline and then a connected clip to the main timeline. So if I was to move this clip around in time, the clip that's connected to it would move. So we had this lower third kind of like connected to this extreme long shot, which is kind of useful if you know that you have to have text always on top of this clip. It's going to like force it to be on top of the clip. All right, so at this point we have text and it says name description. I have to click on the text layer, and then I'm going to go into this area on the viewer up here at the top of the screen. This is kind of like where you can it used to be called the canvas, where you can kind of see what's going on wherever the playhead is parked. So I have to park the playhead there, select the clip, come up to the timeline, and I could type directly in here if I hover over or double click, and then I could type. Or I want to bring up my inspector. That's this icon. And now I would be able to see in the title kind of like what's going on, the text, and now I would be able to go in and change the text here. So this is going to be our ELS/XLS, and then you see it there, and I'm going to bump up this font size and make it a little bit bigger. Now we may have problems if it's white on like a white area in contrast. So if you have that contrast problem, it might be a good idea to add a drop shadow. So I'm going to show this drop shadow down here and turn it on. That's this little checkbox, and see how we added this little black thing. Here's off and on. It kind of adds a nice little drop shadow, and you can like change the size and the distance of it. I'm just going to leave it kind of as is. I think that looks nice. And then this description area here, I can click in this area, and I'm actually just going to delete it. So I'm highlighting right in this the canvas area and delete, and now I just have ELS XLS. And if I wanted to move it, I can go into this area here and transform, and then I'd be able to grab the center icon and kind of drag it to where it needs to be. Now a bit about text. It needs to be title safe. So I want to bring up those title safe zones, displaying my show title safe action safe zones. So all text needs to be on the inside of this inside yellow box. Anything on the outside of the outside yellow box is considered screen or out of the screens or action safe zones. So screen safe is on the inside of the outside box. So sometimes some televisions might cut that off. And then the title safe box is the inside box, and you want to make sure that you have the text on the inside of the inside box. So we have our ELS XLS here. I can click and drag to move it around, and I'm going to put it on the inside of the inside box, and then I would go through and I would do the rest of my shots in that fashion. So at this point you would have, in order according to the shot sheet that we set up for this project, all of your shots. And then you want to get this out to YouTube. So here's how you would export. I'm going to say File and Share, and then Master File, or it's Command E. So if you hit Command E on the keyboard, or you get to Share and then Master File, this screen will pop up. Okay, so we need to do a couple little tweaks here. We want to go into our settings, and we don't want to do this Apple ProRes file. We're going to change that. We're going to go down to H.264 file, which is a bit more compressed, and this can stay the same. At the end we want to say open with, we don't want QuickTime Player, we're just going to say do nothing. And by doing that, it's going to ask you where you want to save the file. So make sure you set up do nothing. And this is all looking pretty good. Info, I think we're good to go, and I can click the next button. Now here is where it's going to ask me where to put it. So because your library is not really a folder, it's like a bundle, we want to make sure we have a folder somewhere on the C drive where all of your exports are going to go. So what I like to do is just same thing, make a folder, so you can click new folder, and then make a subfolder on the C drive with all caps first and last name. And then within that folder is where I'm going to put this exported file. So here I'm going to delete what I just had there, and I'm going to date everything, so -3-14, and I'm going to call it what it is, fixed shots, and I'm going to tack my last name on it. This way, if you were to ever need to find this file years down the road, you have the date, you have what kind of file it is, and then you have your name on it. It's important because in our computer lab there's so many students in there to put your name on all of your files that you're exporting. So here we would say save, and now it's going to go through and it's going to, if you look right here, it's exporting or sharing this file, and it's now kind of processing and transcoding it. And then if I go up here, it's telling me it was successful, and I can close or show. I'm going to close, I'm going to show you on the drive. So if I go to Finder, into the C drive, in this folder that I just kind of pointed it to, here's the file that I just exported, and if I hit the space bar to preview it, here's our slate, and then here's our exported shot with our lower third, and then we would take this file and we're going to upload it to our YouTube page and then embed it into our Blogger website for our online portfolio. And that's going to do it for this tutorial.